This conference will now be recorded.
Hello?
Yeah, Robert, I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly. So that's all right.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, so this is our first topic where we are going to discuss EC2, and this is the first topic on our compute. So as we have discussed earlier, so we will be going with compute. Now, before that, you should be creating an account. And how do you create an account? You have to use / I think it's free tier or something.
Okay.
Okay, let me tell you that. So AWS free tier. Yeah, so this should be the link which you would be accessing. So from the next session onwards, because we are going to get into practicals, we'll be getting into console and we'll start creating stuff. So make sure that you go to this account, you go to create account, and then it will require your details. I'm just going for create new one because it's going to my existing one. So I'm going for a new one, and you have to provide your email, your password, your account name, and then it will be taking your address details, your phone number, your credit card details, and few other things. Okay, so it doesn't charge you anything for up to 12 months. So it's free up to 12 months unless you use something in addition to what it already gives. Now, when it says free tier, it's not everything is free, but you can work with free tier to a larger extent. So you would be able to access most of the services for free until you go beyond a certain limit. So these services within a free tier, they comes with a limit. So they have their own quota. So for example,
So you know which services are free, right?
yeah, and that is something we would be able to see it. So as soon as your account would be created and before you start using your account, I'll be telling you how to manage it and how to check on a regular basis and what services are free and for what services it will be charging you. So we'll be seeing that. So yeah, but this is something which you should complete because that is very personal to you, and they will be asking your personal details. So you should create one for yourself. It just requires one debit card or credit card is what you need, and this it will deduct $1 or $2 for verification, and that will be again refunded back to you. So yeah, that's just for verification. All right, so create that account because that's something we will need from the next time onwards. So let's go with EC2, which is the topic for today, which is also called Elastic Compute Cloud. It's called EC2. So EC2 is Amazon Elastic Cloud. It provides scalable computing capacity. It's a virtual machine in AWS Cloud. So what does it mean by scalable? That you will be able to create a lower configuration, then you can change it to higher configuration, and if you want to further change it back to lower, you can do that. So it's scalable. You can put it up and down. That is something you would be able to do it. That's why it's called scalable computing capacity or virtual machine within AWS Cloud. Now, what EC2 gives? So why should we use EC2? First thing is it's available in different locations. So we understood from our first session that we have something called regions, we have availability zones. So you can have EC2 instances across these availability zones. So if you create an EC2 instance within a region, it will be available for different availability zones. So you will have number of availability zones, and it will be available for all different locations. Now that's one reason, so it's highly available. Another thing is you have choice of instances families available with different resource ratios. What does that mean? That means you have number of choices to choose from. So you can go for a smaller version or a smaller configuration or a mid-size configuration or a higher configuration. For example, if you need general purpose, which should be balanced of your memory, your CPU power, your disk power, everything, then you can go for general purpose system. Now, let's say if you are going for memory intensive work, maybe databases, right? So if you are going for databases work, which requires a lot of memory has to be consumed in that, then you would be going for a memory intensive EC2 instances. So some EC2 instances, which is high on memory, but maybe lower on CPU. Now, if you're working with graphics, or if you are working with a video streaming or video decoding, encoding, such things like that, then you would be needing high processing units. So you, or maybe data science, something like data science you'd be. So maybe you need high CPU intensive workloads. For such a configuration, you would be choosing high CPU as your requirement, lower on memory and disk and other things. So depending upon your requirement, you have different choices of configuration available for EC2, and you can choose one of them. Followed by, it has list of support operating systems. So it has list of support for operating systems and software. So you can do it for Windows, we can do it for a variety of Linux or Unix operating systems. That's something we'll be seeing it in upcoming slides, few of them. Now you can also import and export virtual machines. So that's one advantage. So let's say someone is running a virtual machine on their own desktop. So someone has created an environment, they're performing testing and everything. Now their laptop is older one, maybe 2 years back, but their environment is still the same. Now laptop is not supporting that environment. They would be able to move that onto the cloud. So something which you were running on your local desktop or local machine, that is also something you will be able to import or export within cloud.
It's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. So a virtual machine, you can export it and then you can import it to your AWS cloud. So you can do that.
Okay.
And then you can integrate it with various AWS services. So you have more than 2,000 services available in AWS, and you can integrate it with many other services. So whatever services you see on your AWS, you will be able to integrate it with almost everything, with few exceptions, such as for example, Data Connect, Storage Gateway, and all those places. You don't need that because they are not running your services. But anywhere you want to run your applications, you want to run some services, you definitely can integrate with those services. And then there are various options in terms of cost. So you can purchase, you have different options to purchase in terms of cost optimization. So you can go for pay per go or pay per hour as a model, or you can go for reserve capacity, you can go for spot bidding or dedicated. So there are various pricing features available to you buy. Okay, so let's see first the list of operating systems. So the first one which you see on your screen, this is something which is provided by AWS. This one. So it's called AMI. These all are called AMI, which is called Amazon Machine Image. So it's popularly called as AMI. And you have AMI for Amazon Linux. So you have something called Amazon Linux. The advantage of installing Amazon Linux is that it by default, it comes with something called Amazon CLI and SDK packages. While if you don't want that, there are other choices. You can go for Microsoft Server, you can go for CentOS, Debian, Red Hat, Windows Server, SUSE, Linux, Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian. So there are a variety of Unix, Linux flavors available to you, which you can
So
use.
which is the most popular one, or it all depends?
So it all depends on the usage. For example, someone who is comfortable working with Red Hat, they will be going for Red Hat. Someone, for me, especially when I work with AWS, I go for Amazon Linux. The reason for that is there are quite a number of libraries which comes by default. So I don't have to install them separately. While when I'm in Red Hat, I may have to install a few packages additionally. But yeah, in case, I am trying to replicate one of my servers, which I'm already working on. For example, one of my project assignment, which I'm working on my virtual machine, is already running on Linux, and I'm running software onto that. Then I will be working with Linux. So I'll go for Red Hat Linux. Now, in case I have a FTP server which works on Windows Server, or a package manager which runs on Windows Server, then I will be spinning up a Windows Server on my AWS. Similarly, on what flavor I'm working with or what flavor I'm comfortable with, I'll be using that. So yeah, as per users, different users, there are a number of users who like Red Hat, CentOS, Debian, and if someone is working with Oracle products, they will prefer Oracle Linux for that, and Ubuntu as well. So that's also popular. So depending upon the usage, people differ in terms of what they are doing. But all in all, they are all Linux flavors, and most of them, they all support similar services. So you would be able to install libraries. Only difference is the way you run the command. For example, in Red Hat and Amazon Linux, you can run yum install to install packages, while on CentOS or Debian or Ubuntu, you will be running commands such as apt-get install. So yeah, those differences are there. Otherwise, in terms of flavors, the packages, it's similar. Okay. Now, apart from so that was about operating systems. So you have number of operating system, and then it also comes with variety of different softwares to support. So you have numbers of softwares available. So you can see that there are hundreds of business intelligence products, and this is something we will see when we will log into the console. So it's giving you a glimpse of it, but you have variety of other products as well. So you have business intelligence products, you have application stack products, content management products such as SAP, LAMP, Drupal, and you have for WordPress, quite a number of different software which is available to you. And if you need that, you can use those AMIs to launch your servers. Now, what is the advantage? And what is the difference between these two? So these are just the operating system, which will be coming operating system as a scratch. So everything you'll have to do yourself. Now, in case you want these software to be available as soon as your server comes up, maybe you can order a LAMP server, which by default comes with Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, Perl, and Python. So that is something which will be available to you by default. You don't have to do that. So yeah, these are available. So that's the advantage.
So some
Okay.
of this software, do you have to install them?
No, so if you order them, you don't have to. If you create your EC2 instances, then you have to. So there are two ways. Let me just tell you. Just to make you clear on that. So whenever you create EC2 instance from pre-configured AMI, so we discussed something about pre-configured. Okay, so when you do it from pre-configured, you just get the operating system, okay, and no software. So software installation must be done. That is when you choose EC2. Now, when you choose EC2 with software, right, that means you're choosing OS plus software. So both are coming. So at least, and depends upon what software you're choosing. So both, no need to install that software. But if you need additional softwares, then you have to install it. For example, if you are installing, in this case, if you want LAMP, then no need to install LAMP. But here, if you want to install LAMP, you will have to install Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. So you'll have to perform all these installations. So that's why it's easier if beforehand you know that you are going to work with a web server, or you need a server where you need these softwares to be available. You can just order it based on the softwares. And you have AMIs available. They are not pre-configured, but they come as a community AMI or someone who has released it. And that is something we'll be seeing it, how they look. But they are still for free. Few of them, they are chargeable, but there are quite a number of them which are available for free as well. And you can order them. Okay, so next is EC2 integration with other AWS services. So whenever you create EC2, that's your virtual machine. And you know that whenever you connect your virtual machine, because in AWS, you have all different layers of services available. For example, for database, you have one service available. For storage, you have another service available. For networking, you have another service available. So whenever you create a virtual machine, you will be integrating it with various other services. For example, if you have a requirement for S3 or storage, so let's consider this is your EC2 instances, the one in yellow. So these are your EC2, okay? Now you want to connect to storage, you can connect it to S3. You want to perform monitoring on these, or you want to manage your logs, you can connect it to CloudWatch. If you want to run website, you can connect it to Route 53, or you can further enhance its content delivery using CloudFront. You can connect it to databases. So similarly, there are a number of services which you can connect your EC2 instances. So you can integrate your EC2 instances with many other AWS services. And that is something we would be doing it, because as soon as we create EC2 instances, we will be using various other services, we'll integrate it with that. Okay, now this is important. So we know that your EC2 is scalable. You have number of operating system choices, you have number of softwares being available for it. But now we would be getting deep into what are the different EC2 instance types are available. So let's say first time we are creating, for us, although we will be using free tier, but from the organization point of view, we need to understand what they would be utilizing. So it all depends upon what their requirement is, and it differs from company to company. So mainly your EC2 comes with memory, CPU, memory, storage, and networking capacity. So in terms of networking capacity, it's mainly the speed through which you will be able to perform read and write operations. You have something called IOPS, you have something called standards. So it differs. What is the speed on read and write? So based on that, performance is something which you can identify. So first one in the list is general purpose optimized. So in that, you have a such configuration as T2, we have M4 and M3. So these are more like balanced approach. So they are balanced of your CPU processing power and memory processing power, and they are called general purpose optimized for that reason.
General purpose.
Yeah, so they are named general purpose. The reason for that is they use CPU and memory in a balanced way. So they have both of something available. For example,
Okay.
you are not doing anything extensive and you just need a laptop. For example, your laptop, when you run a laptop, you don't buy it for some reason. If you go for Alienware, definitely you are going to run a game. So that's a different one. But if you go for just about running your day-to-day application, you go for a general laptop, right? Buying that. So yeah, it's that way. Next is you compute optimize. So this is when a customer has a requirement where they need more processing power. So, and third one is memory optimize. So compute optimize is when you need more processing power, you need more CPU, more there will be more cores is what you need from the CPU. You go for C4 C3 instances. So that's when you go for C4 or C3 instances. While when you need memory optimize, you will be going for something called X1 or R3, which is highly optimized for memory. So that means you have mainly it differs in terms of price. So if your requirement is memory and you choose X1, it is cost efficient for you because you will be getting more memory for a less price. Same thing is applicable for CPU. If you go for C4 or C3 instances, you'll be getting more CPU power for a lower price, but they are being designed that way based on different customer requirements. All right, so last one which you see is storage optimized. So that's mainly which uses and in that there are two different ones. So one is I2, which is optimized for SSD storage, so that will be really fast. Another one is D2, which is optimized for HDD storage. So mainly you are looking for a data to be stored within a local drive. So that's your HDD storage. When you want faster performance, we would be going for SSD storage, then we choose I2. Otherwise, D2, where it will be giving you terabytes of data to be stored. Okay, so that was about 4 different things which we saw. So first one is general purpose, in which we have T2, M4, M3, followed by compute optimize, where we have C4, C3, and then memory optimize, where we have X1, R3, and then you have storage optimized I2 and D2. Now, if you go to website, there will be few additional would be coming up, would be available there as well. So you can see that right on AWS page, and they have list of configuration. Whenever you choose, you would be able to go and see that. Okay, so let's just see how we check that. So I'm just going to show you the page. EC2 instances types. Okay, so I'll just take you to that page right here. So this one. So this gives you the detail about the whole configurations, and you can see right here. Yeah, so there is something added lately which is called accelerated computing. It was not there earlier, but yeah, it is available now, that as well. So you have general purpose, which is, like I said, it is mix of that, and you have three models available in that, and then T2 and T3 followed by M5. There should be M4. Yes, it doesn't mention that. Yeah, M4, but M4 is also there. Okay, so that's your general purpose. Okay, so now what do you see here? So let's just have a look at one of these. We are not going to see all of them because anyway, we are not utilizing. Let's go for T3 for now. So T3, you can see that there are some configurations such as nano, micro, small, medium, large, X large to X large. Similarly, for all the models, whether it's a T2, M2, M4, sorry, not M2, M5 or M4, you have nano, micro, small, medium differs. Now, what will differ here are these things. So you'll see that based on different model, your vCPU will differ. Okay, your CPU credits per hour will differ, your memory will differ, and your EBS storage will differ. So for example, these comes in general purpose. So you would see that it is mix of your memory as well as your CPU. But when you go for computing or compute optimized, you would see that it is processing more compute power. So if you see that you have something with 36 CPUs, 72 CPUs and all, right? And similarly, if you go for memory optimized, they will be high on memory. So you see that large is 16, 32, 64, 128 gigs, 768 gigs. So if someone has such requirement, they can go for that. And storage optimized. And so these are, that's where you would be able to see that. And then you can decide which one you prefer. So based on your organization need, you would be able to choose one of these. So that's just for your information. You should know what are the different instances types are available. So next is instance addressing. So what does that mean? That means your EC2 is created. So we know all these things. Now let's say our EC2 is created. So that's being done. So once it is created, you will have these addresses and DNS available. So you will have one private IP and private DNS name, and there will be a public IP and public DNS name. Now private DNS, private is for local access.
So private is for the local one access. Okay.
It's for local access. So that means if you create number of EC2 instances, you would be able to access between them using this local address easily. So maybe when you want to do ping, you will do ping private IP. So you can do that using that. While the public one is created for the purpose if you want to access it from the internet. So public IP access from outside, I would say, or internet. So when you want to expose, so mainly you are creating an EC2 instance as a web server where your website would be running. So definitely it will be having access to your internet. You will use public IP for that. But if you're creating a database which will be required for that website, definitely you don't want it to have public IP, so you'll be using private IP for that purpose. So yeah, just so mainly every EC2 instances, it comes with two IPs or private and public, and similarly two DNS names, private and public. Your private DNS names ends with internal, while your public DNS names ends with AWS Amazon.com. I'll just quickly go through that. We are not going to do anything today, but I should just show you as and when we are doing so that we see what does that mean. So anyway, we are going to do that in upcoming classes.
Okay.
But I'll just show you. So what does that mean? So in case I have these EC2 instances, so I have few of the EC2 instances running. I can click on any one of them and I can show you. So let's say, so nothing is running now. So it shows nothing running. And let me click on one of them. So I'm clicking on one and you can see that there is a private DNS available. So there is a private IP and private DNS, and there is a public IP and public DNS. Now, right now it's not visible. The reason for that is because my server is in shutdown status. So when I start it, then it will be appearing here. So, but as per that, we have private IP, private DNS, and public IP and public DNS. So that's what it says. So public ends in AWS AWS.com, while private ends in .internal. Now, elastic IP, there is something called elastic IP, which is a static IP address that's being designed for dynamic cloud. And a static IP, elastic IP is associated with your AWS account. So now, apart from this, so we know that there is private IP and public IP. We also have something called elastic IP. And the reason for that is whenever your server shuts down, your public IP and public DNS changes. So do remember that.
Okay.
During shutdown, and that is applicable for AWS.
So is that the meaning of it being elastic?
Yeah. So if you don't want that to happen, you will use elastic IP. So elastic IP is a different service you create. Okay. So that's a different one which will be creating it. It's right here, elastic IP. So when you create it and when you assign to one of the EC2 instances, you can associate with EC2 instances, and even if your server is shut down, your IP address still will be same. And it is recommended that you use elastic IP because you don't want your servers to keep on changing your IPs. So you need elastic IP for that purpose. So anyways, those things we are going to do it, but for now you should remember that these are the different things which we have as a part of EC2. Now another important thing is Amazon EC2 key pair. So whenever we create our EC2 instance, for accessing EC2 instance we need key pair. So mainly accessing your server, so logging in. For login you need key pair. What this key pair is, it is public key cryptography. So you will have a key. As soon as your server comes up, it will prompt you for a key, and you will pass on that key pair, and as soon as it identifies that key pair, it will allow you to log into the server. Now in case you don't have the key, it won't allow you to access it without that particular key. So, and this is something you generate when you create your EC2 instance for the first time. So once you create it, save it, and then you would be able to do it. So it is important because that's how it identifies that you are the right owner who is trying to access the server.
Okay. So it's like a security key?
Now, if you forgot the key, then you will have to regenerate it, because you won't be able to access the server until you pass on the same key. So you would be generating a new key, and then you can access it from the new key. But then it's still, it identifies that you are the owner, you are logging in with your password, and then you are generating the key. So someone who doesn't know your password, he will not be able to generate a key. Okay, so next in our section is security group. Now, why is this important? Whenever your EC2 instances gets created, you have to decide inbound and outbound traffic.
Okay.
So mainly you decide what IP your server should be able to access and what other servers should be able to access your server. So mainly in IP, traffic, or I should say in traffic, which makes it a little familiar, out traffic. So that way it will know, your server, your EC2 instances will know from what all IPs or what all addresses it can listen to, or it can get the traffic, and what are the different IPs it should send traffic to. So what other servers can access this particular EC2 instances, and this particular EC2 instances can access it from what all IPs. And that is something you do within security group. So your security group acts as a firewall that controls your traffic for one or more instances. Now, why it says one or more instances? Because once you have created a security group, you can assign it to many EC2 instances. So one to many. So once you have created one security group, you can assign it to any number of EC2 instances. So whatever rules you have created on security group, that will be applicable for all EC2 instances. Or otherwise, you can create you can create different security rules for different EC2 instances as well. But if you're creating similar EC2 instances for similar purpose, it makes sense to group them together with the same security. Now, in case you don't create it, whenever you create your EC2 instances, your security group will be created by default for the first time. And the default security group which gets created, you should not modify it. It's recommended by AWS that you should not delete it or change it. So if you want something, you should create one. Now, how does it work? So your security groups, it has different types. So your security group can be created for VPC. So that's something virtual private cloud. When you create it for that, that will be applicable for all your resources. You can create your own. So you can create something new for depending upon why you're creating it for your EC2 instances, or you can use default security group as well. And there was also something called security groups for EC2 Classic, which is not available anymore. So now we don't have EC2 Classic, which was available earlier, long back.
So during the setup, is going to ask you if you want to create a security group, right?
Yeah, so it will ask you to create a security group. So it won't proceed without asking you to create one.
Okay.
Okay, so next is Amazon EC2. So this is a resizable compute capacity. So why does it say is resizable? Because let's say first time, if you have selected one CPU and 1 GB of memory and your EC2 instance is created, then later on you can change it as well. So you can shut down your server, you can change your configuration, you can go for a high configuration and then restart. So it's easy as that. So it's completely quite easy that you can change your compute capacity. So you have complete control over the computing resources, and it's easier to reboot, or reduce time required to obtain and boot new server instances. So as soon as you want to change it, you change it and you can bring it up within minutes. So it's easy. Now you can also scale capacity as we discussed in terms of computing requirements. You can pay only for the capacity you actually use. So depending upon what configuration you are using and for how long you are using. So two things for EC2 in terms of pay as you go model. So first is configuration for EC2. Next is hours of usage. So based on that, you will be charged. So if you are using just for 30 minutes, you will be getting charged for 30 minutes. But that 30 minutes will depend upon what configuration you are using. So if you are using a lower configuration, your charge will be little less. If you are using higher configuration, your charge per hour will be little higher. So based on the configuration and for the amount of time you are using it. So you can choose between Linux and Windows within AWS, and you can deploy it across AWS regions and availability zones for reliability. So mainly you want to make use of replication and other stuff. You can choose between regions and availability zones. And you can also use tags to help manage your EC2. So tag for now, you can just understand that it's more like a name which you can give. Or you want to give it some identity, you can use tags for that. And that tag is something which is created as a key pair value, and that's something you can use in your configuration. And you can assign multiple tags to your EC2 instances. Mainly, maybe you want to identify the purpose of creating that EC2 instances, and that's something you can specify in tag. Okay, so how do you launch it from your management console? So first step, before actually you start creating EC2, you have to determine the AWS region. So first thing, you have to decide which region you are going to create your virtual machine. Second, you will be choosing your AMI and then launching it. Now, before launching, you have quite a number of things to do. But yeah, so click on launch. As soon as you click on launch, you first requirement will be choosing an instance type. And that's where you will be choosing what kind of instance you want. T2, M4, M5, T3. So depending upon what you want, you'll be choosing it based on CPU, memory, storage, and network requirements. So once that is done, next would be where you'll be configuring your network, your IP address, your security groups, your storage volume, tags, and key pair. So once that is done, you are good to launch your EC2 instances. So before you create it, you will have to follow all these steps, and then your EC2 instance will be launched.
So to
Okay.
create an EC2, on your requirement document, they will list all what they wanted on it, right? Or you know exactly all what you want, right? Or you have to figure it out. You have to figure them out yourself.
So come again. So I did not hear the last one.
No, like when you're creating the EC2 and the requirement, will it list like all the things that you need to set up that machine, or you may have to figure out some of them yourself?
No, so you don't have to worry about these because these are high level steps which is being given. But as soon as you start, click on launch. It is like as soon as you do launch, it will take you step by step.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about that. So all details you don't have to write down anywhere, or you don't have to create anything on your own. So it will be asking you for everything. If you don't want to create something, you can ignore it. But yes, something which is really important and your EC2 cannot work without it, it will ask you to create it. So mainly you won't be doing anything. You create on launch, and it will take you step by step, and it will ask you to create all those stuff. So for example, tags is something you can avoid. So if you don't want tags because they are more like naming, if you don't want that, you can avoid it, you can simply go. But security groups, storage volumes, your key pair, your network IP address is something you definitely need. Without that, you cannot launch your EC2 instances. So it will ask you to fill those details, and you would be able to do it. So this is just the requirement. And then next session, when we will actually create our EC2 instances, we will see that whatever we just discussed today, we are exactly using the same to create our EC2 instances. So once you create your EC2 instances, you'll be just good. You will know that you don't need anything extra.
Okay.
All right. So next is your AMI. Now this is important. Now AMI is your Amazon machine image. Now what does that mean? This is more like an image using which you launch your configurations. So it's a template for the root volume for the instance. such as operating system or application server or application. So mainly it's a template which you use to launch your instances. Now you say launch permissions that control which AWS account can use the AMI to launch instances. So to AMI, you can also provide something called launch permissions, which tells on what particular accounts, so what all different users. So you can have number of accounts within your AWS master account, and you can decide who can create instances and who cannot. Now it's a block device map that maps to your instance. So there is a volume, which is your block device that get attached to your instance when it is launched. Now these are something which you can create as well. So once your EC2 instance is created, you would be able to create AMIs. But AWS comes with something called default, mainly the pre-configured AMIs, and then they have user-defined AMIs, something which you define, and then community AMIs, which people like you, me, or someone in the community, if they are working on, they have given it, so they can use that. So one of those. So AMI is your template using which you launch your configuration or launch your EC2 instances. Now, so this is how it works. So you have an AMI. Using this single AMI, you can create number of EC2 instances. So you can create one, or you can create multiple using a single AMI, because this is just like a template image. So using this image, you can create any number of EC2 instances. And best part about AMI is, for example, you have used pre-configured AMI and you have created an instance. Now, after creating this instance, you have performed number of software installations. So for example, let's say I have done Apache, I have done, databases, I have done Python, or maybe few other softwares which I have installed. Now, what I can do next time, I may have a requirement to create similar virtual machines. So I can take an AMI, which is more like a snapshot. I take an AMI from there, and that AMI will be running. Using that AMI in future, I can create more instances similar to this instead of creating it from the scratch. So that's another advantage, and that's something we will be doing it. So your AMI depends upon region, the operating system, the architecture, whether it's 32-bit or 64-bit, and the launch permissions, who can launch it, and the storage for root device. This is something required for your AMI, and these are the information which resides inside your AMI. Okay, so that is the life cycle for an AMI. So what AMI contains? It contains operating system, application, configuration, and once you use it to launch instances, your instances will be running. So you can run it, you can stop it at this point, and then instances will be launched within VPC, your virtual private cloud. Within that, you will have availability zones and regions. So you'll have a region, within that you will have availability zones, and your instances will be running within that availability zone. So you can think of region at the top level. So within a region is at the top level, then you have VPC. Within VPC, you have availability zones and your availability. So VPC is mainly the private cloud, and your availability zones are something within regions. So anything which you create, any resources you create, EC2 instances, that is something you create inside VPC, and then you assign it to one of the availability zones. And that's the life cycle for an instance. So it uses AMI. As soon as it is you use it to launch it. When you launch, it comes to pending status. From pending, pending is when it is actually creating your instance. So as soon as that done, comes to running, and then if you are rebooting it, you can do restart. If you're shutting it down, sorry, when you terminate, it goes to shutting down status and then finally gets terminated. And terminated is something you want to remove. So mainly the EC2 instances which you have created, when you terminate it, it will be removed from your dashboard. So it won't be available to your EC2 dashboard anymore. But when you just want to stop it, you click on stop, and it will be going to stopping status, and then finally it will be stopped. And that is something you would be able to start it again. But terminate, you can do it from running directly, or you can do it when it is stopped as well. So in case you want to preserve your EC2 instances, you should always stop, because terminate, that means your EC2 is gone and it's no more. Okay, so another one is AWS Marketplace. Now this is one way where you have access to number of different softwares. For example, example, you know that there are common softwares which you can easily get, for example, a LAMP server or something for the WordPress, or maybe a Unix machine. You can get it easily. But if you want something, let's say Cisco FI and all, you can use Marketplace. So mainly Marketplace is where you can go and buy stuff. So you can buy it from Marketplace if you have such requirement. Okay, so yeah, so these are about EC2, some of the details. So what it uses Intel Xeon processors, and we know that in all server technologies, it uses Intel Xeon, and anywhere in the world, even in laptops these days, you do find Intel Xeon. And if you buy Intel Xeon processor, your laptops are really, really fast. So if you are doing some high configuration system, buying high configuration system, you're doing some CPU intensive processing, it's recommended that you buy for Xeon. Mainly you want your laptop to work as a workstation, you should buy Intel's Xeon processor. You should look for that. Otherwise, your Intel without Xeon will do. So whenever we choose our instances, we have to consider these factors like core count, the memory size, storage size and type, the network performance, and CPU technologies it is utilizing. So for example, your X1, C4, D2, and M4, these configurations within your EC2, it uses Intel Haswell micro architecture, and it uses Intel Xeon V3 processor. So that's an advanced one, which is required for hardware assisted technologies. While your X1, it comes with tons of memories. It comes with 2 terabytes of memory and 100 vCPUs. So that's how powerful it is. Your X1 instance, that's about your X1 instance. It uses Intel E7 V3 highest pressure. So don't worry about that. That's just for your information. You don't have to remember that, and you can always find the documentation. It's just to tell you that how powerful these machines are if you choose them. So Intel processor, there are various technologies available within that. You have something called Intel AVX, which is utilized for better performance and for high parallel workloads. You can use it for life science processing, data mining, financial analysis, or video processing, audio processing, image processing. So mainly this tells you what kind of work you are working with, or what kind of organization industry you are utilizing. So if you're working with audio video processing, you can choose this. Now another one is Intel AES-NI. If you are working with decrypting, encrypting data kind of stuff, you can use that. Now Turbo Boost technologies, this is something which is even available for laptops these days. So you have Turbo Boost technologies available in the newer laptops, not the older one, but in the new one it is available for that. But others, the one above AVX and AES-NI, that is available only for your servers. Now Turbo Boost technology actually came for server first, and then later on it was released for laptops as well. And this is required for workloads. So what does Turbo Boost means? Whenever your CPU is utilized about around 90% and so, it gives you all of a sudden increases performance for CPU so that it can accommodate additional workloads. And that's why it's called Turbo Boost technology.
Okay.
Next one is Intel Transactional Synchronization Extension. And that is again used for acceleration throughput. So maybe all of a sudden you need such requirement. So your CPU should be able to handle that. And then there are P state and C state, which provides you core performance and sleep states. It tunes it mainly and improve your application performance. So for that reason. So yeah.
So these are different type of processors, right?
Yeah, so these are just different Intel processor technologies. So because all of your Amazon data centers, servers, they resides on Intel processor. So just giving you a glimpse of what are the different kind of processors those server uses. Now the reason for that is because whenever you choose a different EC2 instances, it will be using a different one of these processor technologies. So just to get an idea, what are the different processor technologies it is utilizing. So yeah, so you don't have to worry about it, that you will get it automatically when you choose your instances. But yeah, just from the organization point of view, when you have to select something, you may be a little bothered about what should I choose. Now this is a table. It's an interesting table which tells you what it can do, what it cannot. So you can see that here it is a list of processors which you see: Intel processors, AVX, AIS, Turbo Boost, TSX, P state, C state, SSD storage, and then right here you see this table, high memory, CPU utilized, storage, general purpose, memory optimized, IO optimized, graphics optimized, and burst stable performance. So whether they are correlated or not. So based on this table, you can decide whether it is good for you or not. So you'd be able to gauge it. Okay. So otherwise, for a general user or from the organization point of view, you want to take a quick decision, you can decide when you want to go for which particular instance family. So you use general purpose, something as D2, D3, M4, M3, M5, when you want to work with low traffic websites and web application or small databases and mid-sized databases. So mainly you want to work with a testing application for developers, who are trying to run something, or for a startup who has just started, they are still experimenting. So for them, they can use it. Now, if you want high performance front end fleets, or you need something for video encoding, you need compute optimized. If you need high performance databases and distributed memory caches, you would be using memory optimized. If you're working with data warehousing and log or data processing application, definitely it's going to use a lot of storage. So yeah, you would be using storage optimized. And in case you are working with 3D application streaming, machine learning, something, you are running game in that, you want to run game or you want to test games, then you will be using GPU instance for that, because it will be required higher graphics for that reason. Okay. So now within instance, you have something called metadata. Now, what is a metadata? Metadata is nothing but information about your EC2 instance. So mainly when your EC2 instances gets created, it will have details such as what availability zone it is, what subnet, what region, or so everything. It will have all those small details about it. So that is something called metadata, which is available as a part of instance, and that is something you can use to configure or manage your instance as well. Now we can also see that. So there is a link which is provided by AWS. So this is a link. If you access it, it will give you something like this. So when you have an EC2 instance created, if you run that, you would see that it is giving you this metadata. So it will tell you AMI ID, the launch index, your block device, your host name, instance ID. So these are some things which you can also see from the dashboard. But if you want to see it on the command line, you can hit this URL, or you can put this URL on your Linux or Windows machine. So you can write curl or get on your to a command prompt, and it will display all these details. So you can use these metadata to fetch information quickly if you're doing some programming or anything. So these are the metadata which it contains, your EC2 instance contains. Now, so that's about metadata. There is also something called user data. Now, what's user data? That is something you can pass to instance at launch. So when you're launching, you can pass it, and can be used to perform common automated configuration tasks. You can run scripts after the instance starts. So what does that mean? So that means when you're creating, maybe you just want to give few things. For example, you want to install something. Maybe you can do yum install httpd during a startup. So as soon as your instance starts, it's going to do this as well. Or maybe you can simply say, if you nothing much, you can say create a directory, to make it simple. Create a directory /user01/app. Let's say this is the directory you want to create. You can put it in the user data. So when your instance gets created, it will also create this particular directory for you, which is not its default nature, but you want it to do. So that's something you specify in user data, and that's why it is called user data, because you're specifying it to do that. Okay, and how do you add it? So in Linux and Windows, in Linux you can do it by either a script, or you can specify on the text box. Or Windows, you can also do it on Windows using PowerShell scripts, which gets executed by EC2 config service. While on Linux, it gets executed by cloud init service. Now let's see that how we do that. So if you are doing it on Linux, it's simple as that. You write 2-3 lines of code. For example, this is a script you are using. So you say install HTTP server, then make it on, and then start it. So simply installing an Apache, and you are running it. So as soon as the server starts, your Apache will be installed and it will start running. So mainly your web server or Apache is running. So that's for Linux. Now, same if you are trying to do something for your Windows, you will be using PowerShell. You will import one of the module for server manager, and then you will install Windows feature, web server, web server, manager, web management tools. And once it is done, your IaaS and web management tools will be installed. So it's applicable for both. You can specify this user data for your Linux as well as for your Windows machine. So it's easy. And this is one of the examples from the snapshot which I took. So one of the machines, once it is created, so for example, like I have one machine, and this is something we can do in our next session. So once we create a machine, we would be able to launch it. So once it is launched, we will log into that. Once we log into that, we can run this command. So we can run cat or curl, and when you run it, it will show you these features. So it will show you all those things, the metadata which you have. And also now it can show you the metadata if you just specify this. Now in case you want to see the user data, you can just say user data after latest. So if you say user data, it will tell you the user data which you have mentioned when you actually created your EC2 instances. So using this, you can use metadata as well as user data. So you can use both. Okay,
So,
now this one, yeah.
On a high level, what's the difference between metadata and user data?
So metadata is something which comes by default when you create EC2 instance, and user data is something which you specify. So user data is not present until you put something there.
Okay.
So that's the difference. So metadata is something, information about EC2 instance itself, while user data is information which you feed in when you are launching instance.
Okay.
Yeah. So that means in case you have not mentioned any user data while launching this instance, and if you hit this URL, then you won't be seeing any user data because simply there is nothing.
Okay.
Okay, now this is the last slide, and this is just about pricing. So we have seen different things within EC2 instances, and this is the last one, which tells you what are the different ways to buy your EC2 instances. Now it's really important to know what you really want and what kind of purchasing option you want to choose. So first one is your on demand. On demand is the simplest and the most easiest one, and this is something which people buy most of the time when they are starting with it, when they want to experiment with it. Pay per hour, because they don't want to put hefty amount of money until they test it. So they buy something pay per hour, they use it for hours, they see that yes, it works the way they want it, then they go ahead and buy one of these systems. So this is simple. This is something what we will be using. So we'll be running on demand, which is pay per hour. So we'll be using our instance, we will run it, and then we will shut it down, so that we will be charged only for number of hours and the configuration which we use for EC2. So simple as pay by the hour. Next is reserved instance. So this is something you know already that you will be using it for a longer term. So maybe you want to use it for 1 year to 3 years term. So you know that you definitely want this system. So you're happy with AWS, you know that you really want it. When you buy such a configuration, it will be given to you at heavy discount. So it is up to 70% discount comparing to on-demand instances. And you know that you are running it for 3 years, so it makes sense to buy it at that discount and then run it. So that is something which will be available to you, and it will be reserved for you, which will be using it. So no one else can take it from you once you buy it. Now there is another one, schedule instance, which is always available for a 1 year term. So that is something you can buy for 1 year term, but it is available in a recurring schedule. So whenever it is scheduled to be available, you can use it at that time. Another one is spot, which is more like a bidding one. So you bid, for instance, and it for a spot price, and you can use it until the time someone else bids higher. So if someone else bids higher, then you can lose this instance. So why do you need such instances? Because it's really cheap. It is dirt cheap price, and you can use it. Maybe you just want to perform a piece of testing, you can do that and use it, and then you can give it back. Another one is dedicated instance, which you can use. And what does that mean? That is means it is going to, although you pay per hour, okay, but it's not running on shared infrastructure. So what happens when you run on demand? It goes to your data center, because you know that underlying there is a data center from AWS warehouse. Now when it goes to AWS warehouse, in that data center there will be number of other customer servers will be running. But when you go for dedicated instance, you are not running on shared instance. Instead, it runs on single hardware. everywhere. So it's dedicated for you. So you have a dedicated instance for yourself. While dedicated host is a bit different, that it gives you one physical host just for yourself. So that means you have the full control over that machine. Nobody can, anyone else cannot even touch it. So these are the different options. And in terms of pricing, you can see it this way. So on the left, it's lower, on the right, it's higher. So that's how it goes. So
Okay.
when you go this way, it goes higher. Yeah, sport instances, you cannot actually predict because it's more like bidding. So if you bid less, you won the machine, you can use it, otherwise no. Yeah, but these two right here, they are higher in prices. This is at lower prices, but then you are utilizing it for 24 hours, maybe, right? And this one is something which you can use, pay per usage, so that's a good one. All right, so that's all about EC2 instances. In terms of theoretical knowledge, which you should know, and you already know quite a number of things now. Now, starting from next session onwards, we will be working on EC2 instances primarily, and then all of the compute services, other services. So that's going to take some time. It may take, maybe 2-3 days. We have to work with quite a number of things. EC2 is vast, and that is the first topic, so we do take time in that. But we will be starting on that on Monday. So we won't be doing anything tomorrow. I'm traveling tomorrow, so I won't be there. By the way, where do you stay? Like where do you reside? I hope you are not in.
I'm in
Yeah.
Dallas.
Oh, you're good then. I was just thinking, you're not in Michael's path, because that's horrendous. I mean, it's like it's like destroying everything in its path.
Okay, no.
Yeah. So just a
Well,
second. Okay.
where are you?
I'm in NC, but I'm still far away, so it's gonna take a while. So we are going to be hit by it tomorrow, but yeah, I don't know how it's going to be. It's gonna rain. It will be windy. So let's see. Not sure at this point of time. But what I see right now, somewhere in Florida, it's really terrible there. So it's like throwing away houses, throwing away trees, everything. So it's bad situation over there.
Terrible.
Yeah. So okay, so anyways, we are not connecting tomorrow and day after. So again, we'll be connecting on Monday, Robert. Okay.
Sure. So how am I going to get some of these notes?
Yes, that's a good question. And Firoz is the right guy for you. He would be able to tell you. Firoz, can you help Robert with that? I think it's easy. I can just tell you, Robert, how it is, but Firoz will share the details with you. So there is something called Box. We have a link where he will provide you access. You can go in and you can check the slides. You can check the videos and everything. So everything will be available for you. But yeah,
Okay.
I'll tell Firoz about it, and Firoz can send you mail for that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Thank you, Firoz. So we are wrapping it up, Firoz.
All right.
Bye-bye. Have a good one.
You too.